Hello and welcome back to Franchise Sports Talk Basketball. It's been a long while since you've done one of these, given the lack of uh, competitive basketball being played. But we're back as the NBA seems to be returning, and this time I'm joined by not just Sam, but Josh as well. So
How you
hello.
doing?
Uh, yes. So you're looking forward to the return?
Yes, I'm just looking forward to any form of basketball coming back on our TV, to be honest. It's been far too long.
Yeah, I think we're all in a similar spot. It was left a particularly frustrating time compared to other sports as well, I think. Um, Baseball didn't even start. European football, quite a lot of it was basically decided already. Basketball was just sort of building up towards the playoffs perfectly as well, and you had MVP race. Zion had just come into the league, and then they stopped it, and it was the most frustrating time in a way for the season to be postponed, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, but it does mean that when it comes back, it is going to be just the good bit of the season. Because I find often this sometimes this end bit of the season, at the end of the regular season, does end up getting a bit of a drag in basketball and baseball as well. I think where there's not actually that much to play for, and the games are sort of meaningless, and people start to rest their good players and everything. But the first few games when they come back, it's going to be like it's just good to have basketball back again, and then very quickly we're going to be straight into like really big games again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what's interesting with this format. Is an element of what you were just saying about the end of the regular season is sort of pointless at times. Is some teams might treat it like that still. Um, I mean, the Lakers and Bucks don't really have anything to play for. But these 8 games they've got before they go into the playoffs is going to be really interesting to see how teams choose to play it and how they use their star players, particularly. I think I don't know how many minutes. Um, well, Kawhi is obviously the main one. I think about like, are they going to play him at all in those 8 games, or is he going to play all of them to get ready for the playoffs? I don't know.
Yeah, I would have thought they would play them, as it's been so long without basketball and even training
Yeah,
for a lot of them. Well, I mean, they have been back training now, but they had a big gap where they weren't having proper training.
I think the players will need to play at least 4 or 5 of these games just to get some form of basketball sharpness back. Because I can't see how teams are going to go into the playoffs with players who haven't played a single game.
Hmm. Yeah, I think they'll have to. They're going to have to ramp up quite significantly. Um, what I find, I can't really decide where I stand on it with the older players. So most obviously LeBron, but also Chris Paul too, and maybe like Kyle Lowry and some of the players that are the heavier side of 30, perhaps. And you would kind of think that having a long rest could be an advantage for those guys. But then I also have this slight feeling that they were building up through the regular season, all of them towards the playoffs and getting in rhythm and getting in like perfect fitness or close to it. And then they've suddenly been told 3 months. And I don't know if
Yeah,
like, is that 3 months for rust to build up for the older guys?
uh, I
Yeah, I
I
think
I think so. Yeah, yeah. Go on, Josh.
yeah. So I was just going to say, touching on what you guys just mentioned about the how the sort of on a regular normal season, the sort of when you come back from the All-Star break, um, the remainder of the season is really just a ramp up towards the playoffs, and a lot of that is used for players to get into sort of playoff shape. And obviously, we're not going to not getting the chance to see that now. So just wondering whether the older players, whether the rest is actually going to be a negative because they're going to be rusty as well as the younger players. I just think most of the players are going to be rusty, not in terms of the as well as the quality, just injury wise as well. That I suspect you're going to be seeing a lot of niggly little injuries when players come back.
Mm. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
inclined to agree.
I think for
Sorry,
some
Jake.
players though, it may well turn the other way. I mean, well, for example, like guys like LeBron, I guess, who have been playing a lot of minutes, like through most of the season, and carrying his team at times. Um, I mean, I don't know how many more seasons he's going to be able to carry on doing that all season and then carry his team in the postseason as well. So maybe having a break, a huge break where it's basically a full off season they've had uh, in between, like near the end of the regular season, like just before the playoffs. I think some of those guys, it's like they there's probably a question of whether some guys that age have the stamina for a full regular season and
Well,
postseason
that's
high intensity anymore. But
doing the thing on Chris Paul, I suppose, at times. I think LeBron is almost impossible to judge because the guy's just a freak. Um, I mean, he's had, considering the Lakers didn't make the playoffs last year and he didn't really play the end of the regular season, then had a full summer off, and then he's just had this 3 month break off. That's like the longest breaks from basketball he's had in like ever. I mean, it's ridiculous. You saw it this season. He was just unstoppable again. So I suspect he's going to come back in great shape as well because he's also like the really truly not elite, because that's a word that gets overused too much because of Twitter discourse, I suspect, a lot of the time, but that like upper echelon of superstars in sports just have this different level of drive to everyone else, and he's going to come back in a just perfect shape, you suspect, and be ready for it. I think he might benefit. I wonder about some of the others, some of the other older guys, whether it's going to be tough for them to get going again.
yeah, the motivation as well, I suppose. Yeah, carry on, Josh. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, another one to look at is James Harden. I mean, he always burns out after about one series of the playoffs. So he clearly puts all his effort into the regular season to get his MVPs and his stats, etc. And he just clearly looks shattered on a normal playoff run. So clearly, this rest is going to be beneficial to him.
He's been one of them that's been in the social media storm of look at the shape James Harden's in as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I think he would have benefited from having Westbrook as well. Towards the end of the regular season we've had, Westbrook was taking on a lot more of the charging at the basket duties, and Harden's numbers are ridiculous, but not quite as ridiculous this year. So I think you're right. I think he's better positioned to dominate in the playoffs than he's probably been for his whole career.
Yeah, definitely. And he's getting to the stage of his career now where he just needs to concentrate on getting a ring, because he won't be in the sort of the all-time greats without that ring. Doesn't matter what stats he puts up during the regular season. In my view, you can't be considered great until you get that ring.
Yeah, and he's heading. Well, a bit unfair to say he's heading towards it, perhaps, because he's not exactly finished yet. But he could easily end up in the Charles Barkley, Karl Malone list, like you say, where it's like doesn't quite, because you never get over the hill. You never actually go up on the all-time list.
If he doesn't do it, he'll be one of the greatest players of all time to not win a ring.
Yeah,
probably the greatest, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to be an interesting team to watch, because also with this super small ball they were playing, they were getting so battered that they surely are going to benefit from having a rest. Although to win the championship from here, they've still got so many games left. Like, they're going to have a lot of time to get battered again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor PJ Tucker.
It's interesting actually looking. I mean, sort of slightly moving on a little bit. I mean, we're still talking about the Rockets. Looking at the standings, these 8 games, although they seem sort of inconsequential for a lot of teams, that area between like 4th and, well, it's like 11th really in the Western Conference, every team has something to play for. I mean, 4th to 7th are definitely in the playoffs, but there's only one game between them. So the Rockets,
that's huge.
There's a difference. They could get home court against whoever the 8th seed is. That
Well,
may
they're not
well
getting home
have
court.
to have,
They're getting a Disney court.
Yeah, good point actually. But you know what I mean. Like they may well get to play against a lower seed than them, whereas at the
There is
moment
going
in
to be
6th, they will be up against the Denver Nuggets in the first round, and they could.
There is a chance they'll
get the Clippers.
some sort of home court in. Yeah, well, yeah, that's the big thing with that, though. I think those teams that are in that group of one game between them is basically someone's going to have to play the Clippers in the first round.
Yeah, like depending on how other things go for other teams, it's quite realistic the Rockets could end up playing like the Kings in the first round, or they could end up playing the Clippers if they have a bad 8 games. So it's there is enough intrigue for it to be exciting on a more than just exciting to have basketball back level, if you know what I mean.
So I think the Eastern Conference has a similar thing where, well, it depends how big you believe the gap to be between Milwaukee and everyone else. That the playing for seeding could involve avoiding being in Milwaukee rather than trying to get as high as possible.
Yeah. Although that's basically between the Nets and the Magic, isn't it?
No, but for beyond that.
Oh right, yeah.
So at the 6th seed, I think I'm working this out. I think if you're 6th, so as it stands, if you're 6th, you'd play Boston in the first round, and then probably Toronto in the second round, but you avoid Milwaukee until the conference finals. Which is that better than trying to navigate your way up and then play Indiana or Miami first round? I don't know.
They're all good teams, aren't they, in the playoffs? So I think teams need to be careful about playing themselves out of a position just to avoid a so-called elite team in like the Bucks or the Lakers. You could play yourself out of form.
Yeah.
Although form won't necessarily be a part if you're only 8 games into like a regular season restart, but
yeah, I feel like 8 games is enough time for there to be some level of form. I think when you go in the playoffs, it's like it's a good number of games. I think they've settled on because it's.
I think it needs to be extreme though. So I think
I guess so. If it's like 5 and 4,
form matter,
it's not going to mean much, is it?
Yeah. So like Josh was saying, like with building form, it's got to be. For it to, I could see maybe there's a scenario where like the Pats somehow go 8-0, but then the problem with them is they then win a play-in tournament and then they face the Lakers in the first round. Like form doesn't matter quite enough then, I suppose. But if say I don't know, Miami come back and Jimmy Butler averages 40 points a game for those 8 games and they win 7 of them, that suddenly makes them a lot scarier than they seemed, because before the break they were not playing all that well. I think the Eastern Conference has looked incredibly interesting all year, and it's been made more so by, initially the preseason stuff was it's going to be Philly and Milwaukee, obviously, way clear, and that's very much not happened.
I had a bet on the 76ers to win the conference. Stupidly enough, like an outside little dark horse bet, which clearly
recently.
No, that was like in the preseason, so that was dead by November, wasn't it? But
I put money on them to get to the finals yesterday. I put 20 quid on because they're way out. Obviously, they're like 81 or something.
Yeah. That was. I just saw like a little bet on Sky Bet way back in sort of September. That Nuggets and 76ers were something like 20-1 to win the conferences. So I put a couple of quid on that.
Yeah,
obviously,
didn't seem bad bet at the time.
No, I thought it was a decent bet at the time. Obviously, the win ending off that now, but just talking about the form thing. Then one of you guys mentioned that if